The escalation in the war between India and Pakistan is increasing, and many are wondering whether this war will turn into a full-scale conflict or if cooler heads will prevail. And still, will this escalation be stopped? The clashes this week between India and Pakistan have become the most serious escalation of tensions between these two historic enemies in decades. And millions of people on both sides of the border are now wondering what might happen next. Despite promising to retaliate for India's strikes on its territory, Pakistan has not yet responded to India in kind. Both sides seem to have already declared victory, but military actions are still ongoing even now. Many sources report that what happened was simply a historic air battle, because India and Pakistan staged one of the largest and longest air battles in the history of aviation. In particular, about 125 military aircraft simultaneously engaged in an air battle between India and Pakistan, which, according to Pakistani officials, became one of the largest and longest in modern aviation history. As a result of the clash, Pakistan reportedly shot down 5 Indian fighter jets. The clash lasted for more than an hour, but not a single plane crossed the border into the other country. Nevertheless, this was indeed a serious tension, and we need to look into this issue now. Where is this conflict heading? Is it moving toward escalation and full-scale war, or toward de-escalation and accordingly a halt to the current phase of this confrontation between India and Pakistan? Let's delve deeper into this topic, analyze it, look at what's happening on the ground, consider some historical experience in the confrontation between these two countries, and try to draw a conclusion about where this war is heading. My name is Alexei Peci, and today is May 8th. Let's go through this step by step. So, I'll start with information about the largest and longest air battle between India and Pakistan. It is reported that 125 aircraft were simultaneously engaged in this battle, and according to the sources, missiles were launched from a great distance, sometimes more than 160 kilometers away. Both sides deliberately avoided crossing the border, taking into account the previous incident in 2019 when an Indian pilot was shot down over Pakistani territory, captured and shown on television. This time neither side wants a repeat of such humiliation, so no one is crossing the border. Let me remind you that on the night of May 7th, India announced the launch of Operation Sindar and carried out strikes on targets in Pakistan and Pakistani Kashmir. In response, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif warned that his side would respond to any attacks. What the response will be is still unclear, but India is already threatening to attack air defense systems in Pakistan in order to completely neutralize their air cover. It is important to note that on Wednesday, both countries were gripped by significant panic after New Delhi carried out targeted military strikes against its neighbor. Islamabad claimed it had shot down enemy fighter jets. Already on Thursday, Pakistan stated that it had shot down at least 25 Indian drones carrying munitions across the country overnight, which it called a new serious provocation by New Delhi, resulting in 4 soldiers being wounded and a civilian killed. This is an unverified statement from Pakistan's Ministry of Defense officials, and its accuracy cannot be confirmed at this time, and they differ somewhat from reality. Because the day before, Pakistan claimed that it had shot down 5 Indian Air Force fighter jets, but so far there is only indirect confirmation of the downing of just one. There is a concern that each new step of confrontation by either side could quickly escalate into a full-scale conflict. The Indian media were euphoric after Wednesday's strike. As stated, for example, by the editorial article of one of India's leading English-language newspapers, these were strikes of justice. And they praised the sharp and decisive response of the country to the massacre of 26 people in Indian Kashmir, carried out by militants. The headline of the publication echoed a similar theme and read as follows: "Justice has triumphed." That's the exact style Indian media are currently using to release their materials. In Pakistan, the public reaction of Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif was just as militant. He vowed to take revenge for the death of 31 people who, according to Pakistan, were killed as a result of Indian strikes. But still, he seemed to have declared victory over the alleged shelling of Indian aircraft. As he stated in his nighttime address, it took the enemy only a few hours to fall to their knees. India claims it struck terrorist infrastructure belonging to 2 Islamist groups. These are Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, who are accused of being behind some of the deadliest militant attacks in India. The strikes on Wednesday were not aimed at military infrastructure and did not kill civilians, which potentially gives India and Pakistan a chance to find a way to avoid a full-scale war. One of the places India struck was deep inside Pakistan's Punjab province, which became the deepest strike on what is still undisputed Pakistani territory since both countries fought a major war in 1971. A strike was also carried out on several other locations in Punjab, in the center of powerful military forces and the residence of the Sharif body government. According to Pakistani officials, this strike hit a mosque, which caused anger among millions of people in the Muslim-majority country. Analysts say that what happens now largely depends on the next step taken by Islamabad. That is, right now all eyes are on Pakistan. If Pakistan decides to save face and declare its victory, perhaps by pointing to the downing of Indian aircraft and ends it there, then a withdrawal may not be far off. So if Pakistan says that we shot down several planes, took revenge, struck back, basically we can stop there. So what will India's next move be? However, experts warn that all bets will be off. If Pakistan launches a retaliatory strike, India will respond similarly, creating an unstoppable escalation spiral. Most analysts now agree that neighbors possessing nuclear weapons cannot afford another full-scale war like this. India and Pakistan have already fought 3 wars over Kashmir, a disputed region that both countries claim in its entirety, but each controls only a part of it. Another conflict could have catastrophic consequences. Despite 3 wars in 1947, 1965 and 1971, the Kashmir issue remains unresolved between India and Pakistan. And let me remind you, if you look at the name of the country Pakistan, Pakistan is actually an acronym made up of the names of 5 different regions. And the letter K in the name Pakistan stands for Kashmir. Accordingly, Pakistan will never give up its claims to this territory. Just like India, which believes that in 1947, this region rightfully became fully part of it. But they keep arguing, and we shouldn't forget that a part of Kashmir is also controlled by China. So, since its emergence almost 80 years ago, as a result of the partition of former British India, Pakistan, where 230 million people now live, has been facing growing problems. From political instability to alarming armed uprisings, climate disasters, and economic chaos. India apparently finds itself in a stronger position. Its army is considered superior in any conventional conflict based solely on numbers. And it can boast an economy that is more than 10 times larger than Pakistan's economy. But India also has something to lose if the conflict escalates. And in many ways, based on what we've seen in the past, these are 2 rational players who still don't want a larger scale war. Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, has promised to raise India's status on the world stage by bidding to host the Olympics and striving to surpass China to become a global manufacturing hub. Accordingly, a war for India right now makes no sense at all. Not to mention that India is already facing security threats on several fronts, especially along disputed borders with China. The real threat lies elsewhere. Engaging in all-out war with Pakistan and diverting resources there is completely irrational. India was quick to state that its response to the massacre on April 22nd was deliberate, measured, and did not lead to escalation. And it was clear that this was a response to the massacre of the tourists, and accordingly there was no intention to start a war. The top officials in New Delhi reached out to key partners in the United States, the Middle East, and Russia. Among other things, probably to offer international pressure on Pakistan and avoid escalation. The leaders of Pakistan praised the victory of the country's air force, stating that during an hour-long battle over a distance of more than 160 kilometers, 5 Indian fighter jets were shot down. Even if we take into account that 1 was shot down, which is now confirmed overall in the air, Pakistan did achieve a certain degree of victory. The leaders of India said little in response to these statements and did not acknowledge any losses of aircraft. The Pakistanis have not yet provided any evidence that they shot down any fighter jets. But a source from the French Ministry of Defense stated that at least 1 of India's newest and most advanced combat aircraft, a French Rafale fighter, was indeed lost in battle. If India has indeed suffered losses, Pakistan can claim victory even if the circumstances are unclear. This would allow Pakistan to claim that it, well, as they say, imposed sanctions on Indian military targets. Like, we also took revenge. However, in the fog of war, the powerful general of the Pakistani army, Asim Munir, has already vowed to repel any aggression from India. And Munir, known for his tough stance toward the Hindu nationalist Modi, has a reputation for being a more decisive man than his predecessor, Qamar Javed Bajwa. Meanwhile, within Modi's Hindu nationalist party, there have been voices for many years calling for a decisive strike against Pakistan. And now South Asia analysts say that the United States, which has historically intervened in such crises, might try to defuse the tension, but it's unclear how many resources the Trump administration is willing to allocate and whether it is ready to get involved at all. China has already called for de-escalation, but its tense relations with India rule it out as a viable mediator. The main candidates for the role of mediator are the Arab states of the Persian Gulf, especially Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. Qatar, by the way, has already rushed to diplomacy immediately after the first missile strikes on Wednesday. We, although most analysts believe, have outlined a way out of the crisis for both countries. They all agree that the situation remains unstable and tense. And this crisis is just as unpredictable as it is dangerous. That's a very troubling combination. As I see it, based on my forecast, everything will now move toward de-escalation and an attempt at negotiations. Because in fact, not a single country is interested in a full-scale war. For Pakistan, this is very expensive, they have major economic problems, and in fact, right now they are being financed by the Emirates and Saudi Arabia. For India, this war is not needed because they are really trying to compete with China, and they have completely different ambitions. Now, it's not about suppressing Pakistan, but rather about overtaking China in the region. This is a much more important goal, you know, and that's why most likely each side is already starting to signal that they've achieved some sort of victory. That's why I'll put an ellipsis here. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to leave a like. If you want to support the work of this channel financially, you can do so with any donation by following the links and details in the description of this video. You can become a sponsor of this channel directly on the platform by clicking the sponsor button under this episode or by scanning the quick response code on your screens. This platform is the easiest and most convenient way to support the work of this channel. I will be grateful to you for this. That's all. Take care, everyone. Goodbye. Subtitles created by